This is William C. Retford. This is a Strad London publication, and William C. Retford was the foreman at the bow workshop of W.E. Hill and Sons. He really knew his stuff. Of placing silver tips on bows, silver or gold metal tips. It was a common practice, generally speaking, that the more you paid, the more chance you had of getting a metal shod bow. As you progress through history, you see the metal tips appearing. Here's James Tubbs, and you can see he liked to put a little kind of rhino horn at the front. That's often catches on things and wears out or gets replaced. You see what everybody knows as the metal tip bow as the W.E. Hill bow, because they favoured it above all else. What surprises people often is to see Lupo, metal tip, Persoir, metal tip, and that is a metal tip Picard. All of the French makers, at one point or another, if you paid the money, you got a silver or gold tip. And what Retford regarded as the secret of a well-balanced bow is to have weight at both ends of the bow. Now, people often ask us, why do we hallmark? And the answer is simple. William C. Retford. From reading his book, it becomes quite clear that there are questions arising regarding the quality of metal used. Lupo. Lupo worked at the same time as Francois taught, his work being of a very mixed quality. Sticks are well proportioned, weight and strength satisfactory. Here it says, on cheaper work he economised by soldering a thin veneer of silver on nickel silver, time being less costly than the material. It's still very expensive stuff, and when it's rolled into sheet, they charge a premium for the sheet. Interestingly, regarding Lupo, having visited the marvellous Stradivarius exhibition put on by Bromptons and Beards in London, wandering around the Ashmolean, which is where a good sizable number of these bows come from, you see that this bow, German violin bow circa 1800 golden ebony mat, is now attributed to Lupo. Whether that's through electron microscopy, dendrochronology, anything like that they might have used, but they are now attributing this beautiful, very ornate, mother of pearl inlaid bow to Lupo. So, we've seen from the book, one of the key experts in British bow making decided that there was definitely foul play going on in the metals, and so we decided we were going to get a London hallmark. Now, the other thing is, the company that Retford worked for, W.E. Hill, they always left a mark on every bow that they restored, on every violin they restored, and everything they ever touched had a mark on it. We decided that they could get away with doing the mark, but we couldn't. So what we decided is that we were going to get London Goldsmiths to do the mark for us, and we pay them to leave the most famous hallmark of all, the leopard's head, the lion passant, which is the passing lion, which shows it's 925 silver in this instance. One other issue is the health issue. This is a BBC News Health web page entitled 22nd of June 2013, a bad penny, new coins and nickel allergy. Tests suggest people with a nickel allergy can be at increased risk when handling the UK's new 5p and 10p coins. But for the 10% of the population who suffer from a nickel allergy, they could feel very different indeed. That's very interesting. So 1 in 10 people handling a nickel bow will develop a contact dermatitis from the nickel. Goes on to say that it can be acquired over time. The problem is that once you have a nickel allergy, you can never go back, says Dr. Julander. Doctors refer to nickel allergy as an allergic contact dermatitis, which means the skin is only affected if it comes into contact with an object containing nickel. Although some people may have a genetic predisposition to nickel sensitization, for most people it is triggered by long-term environmental exposure, which means that you can start out not having a nickel allergy, and over a period of time of exposure to nickel, then you can develop one, and then when it's there, it never goes away. It's like a switch, says Dr. Anel Julander, the study's lead author. Some might be exposed to nickel every day without a problem, and then one day it just flips over for you. Of course, the majority of bows which are not precious metal bows are actually nickel bows. The majority, nearly all bows which are not silver or gold bows, have an associated health risk with them. So you're not just buying a cheap bow, you're buying something which is a health risk. And if it's not hallmarked, you cannot guarantee that what you're getting is not a nickel based thing. There is no nickel in 925 silver. The standard test involves putting coins in a pot of artificial sweat for a week. You then measure how much nickel is released from the coin, which obviously doesn't resemble how we handle coins in everyday life, says Dr. Anneli Julander, who works at the Karolinska Institute in Sweden. To put things right, Julander and her colleagues asked 6 volunteers to spend an hour moving new nickel-plated 5 and 10p coins between 2 boxes. They then measured the traces of nickel left on the skin. We found that the amount of nickel was 4 times higher after handling the nickel-plated coins. Now the interesting thing is, as far as I'm concerned, is the length of time. If I handle a coin from my pocket, it's usually for a matter of seconds. I put the coins back in my pocket and I don't worry about it. But if you ask me, if I was practicing with a bow in my hand, it would be a test which was far more like the one that they did there. It would be a test which says that in fact I'm sweating around the thing, I'm having quite grippy kind of contact with it. My entire hand is sweating on it, and then the sweat is coming back onto my skin afterwards often. I think it's a serious issue. Investment in good quality metal is never a bad idea.